All right, what if I told you that the intelligence you've been taught your whole life, the kind that gets you good grades and a pat on the back, isn't really intelligence at all? The source material we're digging into today makes a pretty bold claim. It's actually just a form of obedience, and that there's this hidden hierarchy of thinking that's secretly running our lives. So let's start peeling back those layers.
So I want to ask you something, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. Are you really in control? I mean, look at your life, your big choices, your career path. Are you the one steering the ship? Or are you just reacting to currents you can't even see? That's really the core question here.
And this is what really raises the stakes. The whole idea is that we are all playing a game. The problem? Most of us don't even know the rules, let alone who the heck designed them. We walk around thinking we're making all these free choices, but a lot of the time, we're just following a script that was written for us.
Okay, so check out this distinction because this is critical. On one side, you've got taught intelligence. This is what the system rewards, right? Following instructions, memorizing stuff for a test, basically obedience. But on the other side, we've got what this framework, inspired by Machiavelli, calls real intelligence. This is about effectiveness. It's about seeing the game for what it really is and making strategic moves. Because here's the hard truth. The world doesn't really care if you're good, it cares if you're effective.
So, let's begin the climb up this ladder. We're starting at the bottom with the first 3 levels. They're called the programmed. And the argument here is that this is where most people live out their entire lives, completely controlled by outside forces without ever even knowing it.
Yeah, these first 3 rungs are basically just different flavors of the same thing, being controlled by external programming. We're going to start at the very bottom with the sleeper, then move up to the believer, and finally the mimic.
Okay, first up, level 1, the sleeper. Now, this isn't someone who's literally taking a nap. This is a person whose thoughts, whose opinions, whose actions are all borrowed. They're just in a constant state of reaction to whatever's happening around them. They never actually initiate anything themselves.
See, the sleeper's entire world is built on one thing, a deep need for safety. They crave someone in authority to tell them what to do. They love routine because it means they don't have to think or adapt. And they need consensus because it makes them feel secure. And it's this very predictability that makes them, as the source calls it, fuel for the system. They're the ones who work the jobs, buy the products, and never, ever stop to question why.
All right, moving up to level 2, we find the believer. Now, this person is interesting because they think they've woken up. They've looked at the sleeper and said, "That's not me, I see the system." But here's the trap. Instead of finding real freedom, they've just traded one controller for another. They've latched onto an ideology, a movement, a cause, and they've completely outsourced their thinking to a new master. They feel awake, but they're just as programmed as before.
And the key trap for the believer? It's that feeling of righteousness. It's an addiction. Their identity gets so wrapped up in their ideology that if you question their beliefs, they feel like you're attacking them personally. So yeah, they get to feel morally superior. But in the grand scheme of things, they're strategically powerless. They just become predictable soldiers for a cause they've completely lost the ability to question.
Okay, next up is level 3, the mimic. The mimic has figured out a very important and kind of cynical rule of social life. Sounding smart is often way more rewarding than being smart. So that's what they do. They perform intelligence. They're like collectors of fancy phrases, book titles, and expert opinions that they can drop in a conversation for maximum social credit. But there's no real understanding behind it.
And this quote from Machiavelli just nails the mimic's entire strategy perfectly. It's all about appearance. I mean, these are the people who can absolutely crush it on social media or in a corporate meeting, just racking up validation for their performance. But the second a real problem shows up, one that needs actual thinking instead of a recycled opinion, that's when the whole facade crumbles.
So, let's pause here for a second. Levels 1, 2, and 3, they're all defined by this reactive, programmed mindset. It's all about seeking safety, following the rules, and caring about appearances. But to go any higher, you have to make a massive mental shift. You have to move into the player mindset. And this mindset, it's strategic. It's always looking for leverage, and it values one thing above everything else: results.
And that brings us to our next major section, levels 4 through 6, the players. This is the turning point. This is where a person stops being just a pawn on the board and starts to actually understand the rules of the game well enough to play it for themselves. At level 4, we meet the calculator. This is a huge leap. The
The calculator stops asking what's the right thing to do and starts asking a much more powerful question. What works? They look at every situation and see the incentives, the leverage points, the hidden traps that everyone else misses. There's no emotional reaction here. It's all strategy. They're thinking 3 moves ahead while most people are still trying to figure out what just happened.
Then at level 5, you have the operator. The operator takes all the brilliant insights of the calculator and adds one crucial ingredient, the will to actually act on them. This is Machiavelli's lion, the visible public leader who makes the hard calls and gets things done while everyone else is frozen in panic. Their power is direct, it's obvious, but that visibility also puts a giant target on their back.
So, the puppeteer at level 6 has learned a tough lesson from watching the operator. They realize that visible, direct power is actually pretty limited and fragile, so they trade force for something much more subtle: influence. They don't give commands. They shape the environment. They shape desires. They create situations where other people want to do the very thing that serves the puppeteer's goals. But there's a huge cost. The source argues they risk completely losing their own identity behind all the masks they have to wear.
Okay, now we're reaching the summit, the final and highest levels of this whole hierarchy, the masters. And up here, the entire perspective shifts. It's no longer about winning the game. It's about either designing the game itself or becoming totally immune to its effects.
At these heights, we find 4 archetypes that have truly transcended the game. First, at level 7, you have the architect. They don't just play the game, they design the systems and the rules that everyone else lives by. They're literally shaping reality. Then at level 8, you have the sovereign. This person has achieved such deep internal self-mastery that what other people think, praise, criticism, it's all just noise. Their validation is 100% internal. Even higher, at level 9, is the void. This is a state of total psychological detachment from ego, from desire. They're just observing the game without being swept up in it. And finally, at the very peak, level 10, is the myth. This is someone whose life, whose ideas become so influential that they guide people for generations, long after they're gone.
You know, this quote from Machiavelli is all about adapting to succeed. But what's so wild about these highest levels is that they take it a step further. An architect, for example, doesn't just change with the times. They are the ones creating the times that everyone else is forced to adapt to.
But here's the catch. And honestly, this might be the most important takeaway from this whole framework. Climbing this ladder isn't free. Not even close. Moving up isn't about gaining something new. It's about being willing to sacrifice something you currently hold dear.
And this just lays it out so clearly. To stop being a sleeper, you have to sacrifice your comfort. To move past being a believer, you have to give up that addictive feeling of righteousness. The mimic, they have to sacrifice the need for social validation. The calculator has to sacrifice connection. The operator sacrifices peace. And the puppeteer, they have to sacrifice their very identity. Every single step up demands that you kill a part of your old self.
And that really is the core idea here. Moving up this ladder isn't an act of addition. It's not about learning more facts or skills. It's an act of subtraction. It's about stripping away all the comfortable illusions that keep you feeling safe, but also keep you completely stuck.
And this is where it all leads. This is the empowering part. Real power, real agency. It all begins the very second you stop just reacting automatically. The moment you can pause, actually see the game being played, and consciously choose your next move. That's the moment you stop being a pawn. You become, as the source puts it, dangerous. Because now you're finally awake.
So we're left with one last, very provocative question. Looking at this whole hierarchy, we know that moving up means letting go of something. So the real question isn't just, where are you on the ladder right now? The real question is, which self are you willing to sacrifice to become something else?